Hello everybody, welcome back to Football Talk with Vinny. In today's video, we're going to be kind of just going over that big Von Miller contract. So obviously, by now, you've already known, right, that Von Miller signed a 6-year, $120 million deal to go with the Buffalo Bills, and it was reported, obviously, is a 6-year, $120 million deal, so you're like, man, that's a lot of money for Von Miller, that's $20 million a year. But obviously, if you're Buffalo, they probably structured a contract in a way to where they can get out of it and not pay him in the last couple of years. And now that some of the details of his contract are out, just wanted to go over those just to show you that sometimes the numbers that are reported aren't always what the player will end up getting. I'm gonna leave it up on the screen here so you can see, and just don't mind me while I look down at the computer just to read the numbers aloud with you. So if you look over at overthecap.com, and you look at his cap number, it's going to be that number on the right. It's like that third number there. It says $5.15 million. So he's actually not going to be paid that much. Now, if you look down to the next one, the cap number for the 2023 season is going to be at 18.75. And if you look, the very first number on the left, it says guaranteed salary of $14.65 million. So what they did was, he has a roster bonus a little bit further to the left. You see a 13.345. That is actually going to be guaranteed. So roster bonuses usually are guaranteed on, the first or second or third day of the new league year. That's usually how it's worded. But because they guaranteed him his salary, they have no choice. They have to pay it. Now, when you look at that third year, he also has a $21.25 million cap number, but he's got a $10.7 million guarantee. So again, when you look at this real quick, if you look at the numbers, the two numbers all the way to the right, let's go back to the top line. If they were to cut him, again, they're not going to, they'd have to pay him $45 million this year, which means, see that number in red to the right, it's 39.85. That means they would have an additional $39.85 million cap hit for this year. Now look at the next year. They'd have to pay him $40 million and they'd have an extra 21. But look at that third year. The third year, they essentially could cut him and pay him about the same, right next to $600,000. So realistically, they're probably not going to do that. So realistically, the first year that you can realistically cut this player is in the 2025 season. If you cut him, you would pay him $7.4 million. And if you look to the left, his cap number would be 21.2. So you would be saving $13.795 million. So theoretically, if his play declines enough to where you say, you know what, we'd rather save that $13.8 million and get a different player. So realistically, the way you would really want to calculate this is he's going to be paid all of his money for the first 3 seasons and probably about $7.4 million if you were to cut this player. So that actually will break down to $52.45 million you're going to give Von Miller over the course of 3 seasons, really over the course of 4, because that cap hit of $7.4 million will be a dead cap in that 4th year when you cut him. So realistically, if you add up the 5.1, the 18.7, and the 21.2, it gets you to almost exactly $45 million, a little over that. And again, that's $45 million for 3 years. So now, when you look at it from that perspective, you're essentially giving Von Miller a 3-year, $45 million deal, right? So now it seems like way less than what was reported, because you're really just giving him $15 million a year for the first 3 years, with that 4th year like, if you're a good player and we want to keep you, we will. If we feel like you're not good enough, here's a parting gift of $7.4 million. Again, sometimes when you hear these numbers reported and you're watching, ESPN, NFL, and they just report these deals, a lot of times, a lot of people on almost every show I've watched, they'll talk about how, there's no such thing as a cap, and the cap's not even a real thing. These teams who have no cap space, they end up signing players all the time. Well, it's because you have to really look into the contract themselves and not just what's reported. Because again, when you hear the Von Miller thing, you have to think to yourself, okay, 6 years, $120 million, that's $20 million a year. How do you even look at the cap number like this and see he's only being paid 5? That's $15 million less than what you would think based on the numbers that were reported. But this is kind of the way all contracts work. Again, it's why football is, the only real sport that doesn't have fully guaranteed deals, right? You look at basketball, you look at baseball, they're all fully guaranteed contracts. If you pay the player and you sign him to a deal, Even if you cut him, you're going to have to pay him the money. Football is not that way, and because it's not, it makes looking at the contracts much more difficult, right? And if you were to look on that 4th year real quick, if he were to play out that 4th year and you just pay him the $21 million, just look at the next year, number 5. His cap hit is 23.7, and you'd only have to pay him 3.7. So realistically, if in that 4th year, the Buffalo Bills thought he was a good enough player to keep on the roster for $21 million, you would keep him, and then next year, you can cut him and just pay him $3 million, and you would save $20 million off your cap. And obviously, it's a very good deal if you're the Buffalo Bills, because A, you get a player who was a top 5 defensive end last year based on Pro Football Focus, and also, again, you are already a Super Bowl contending roster, so adding a dominant pass rusher like that is only going to help you. I mean, realistically, looking at the contract, if you're Von Miller, I'm not really sure why you would have taken this. I doubt that you couldn't have gotten a better offer. Again, maybe you just sign here because you say to yourself, all right, well, Buffalo's got probably the most talented roster in the league, and I just want to win another Super Bowl, which would give Von Miller 3 at that point, which would almost guarantee him getting into the Hall of Fame. So obviously there are other things to think about. So maybe if you're Von Miller, that was the thought process of, okay, I'm still going to get about 3 years, $45 million, which I'm okay with, and I have a chance to win the Super Bowl in the next 3 years. But that's going to be it for today's video. It was a very quick one. Thank you guys so much for watching. But I did feel the need to want to go over the contract because I think this one specifically is a very good one to go over, because when you hear it reported as a 6-year, $120 million deal, right, you assume he's getting paid a whole lot of money. But when you really look at the contract, the first 3 years, he's getting paid essentially $15 million per season. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to the next video. Bye.